And in contemplating what to say to you tonight in this moment, I can assure you that although so much has happened and so much of consequence has happened, I struggled with this message. We could talk about tweets, the absurdity of moral equivalency, the cowardice and failure of leaders, and the courage of others. And this conversation is important. The reform movement has addressed it in decisive and compelling statements, and they are available online. I encourage you to read what our movement has put forth in response to this. We could talk about fear, the fear we feel when we see a swastika on a flag or see the video of a car plowing into our fellow human beings. There is incredible strength and inspiration in the letter from Alan Zimmerman, president of Congregation Beth Israel in Charlottesville, Virginia, that gives insight into that fear of the community of Jews that is closest to it this week and their response to it. I encourage you to read that. And we will be opening up that discussion with parents of our religious school students this Sunday, should anyone like to be a part of it. This conversation is also important. We could talk about Confederate monuments and how important it is that Jews take time to understand why they are standing where they are and why so many in our community and across our country are so passionate about them being removed from these public places. There will be a gathering tomorrow at UTHS Park in front of the Nathan Bedford Forrest statue, and there are excellent articles at your disposal about how that particular statue came to be there. This conversation is also important. What I've decided to talk about, though, is a different conversation, and it is one about the most powerful weapon we have in our arsenal against cowardice and fear and hate, and also human emotions like sadness and loneliness and confusion and despondency, and we experience all of these as individuals in our lives. It is not a political conversation. It is a human one. The best advice about accessing this most powerful tool came from none other than Chris Cantwell, an alt-right marcher in Charlottesville. When Shabbat is over, I do encourage you, please, to watch Vice's HBO episode, Charlottesville, Race and Terror. It is so important to look this evil in the face. And when you watch this 25-minute episode, you will see in the very first few minutes one of these so-called alt-right demonstrators saying the following: "We don't have the camaraderie. We don't have the trust level that our rivals do. And that camaraderie and trust is built up through activism, and that is one of the tactics that we are adopting." I'm sure he'd be horrified to learn that he has given all of us such a useful bit of advice, such inspiration, such a wonderful roadmap, not only for surviving this eclipse of our nation's soul, but growing from it, emerging stronger and brighter than ever before. Camaraderie and trust built through activism. We don't have it, he says. And we answer him, well, of course you don't. You can't build camaraderie and trust through righteous action when the entire premise of your movement is built on creating walls between yourself and those who are different than you, when your own anger and hate and most of all fear are your animating forces for whatever actions you take. You can't, we say to him and everyone he represents. But we can. In the face of this week of violence and pain, of upheaval and sadness and fear, what is our greatest rebellion? Something so simple. It almost sounds cliche. To take a step, a big step, toward each other. And I don't mean just saying we're going to take a step toward each other, but actually really taking a step, reaching out, building that camaraderie and trust that these hateful forces are so covetous of. It's impossible to know what the future holds, but one thing is sure, we are learning that we need each other. We need smiles and warm handshakes. We need hugs and honest words, and we need to know on whom we can rely. Think of the person in your life who says to you in word and most importantly in deed, to get to you, they'll have to go through me. Isn't that person's presence the closest thing we know to feeling God's presence in our lives? This week's Haftorah portion, part of a series of passages of consolation our tradition offers us as we prepare for the hard process of teshuvah that is only a few weeks away, finds God saying the following, Hein gor yagur efes meoti, surely no harm can be done without my consent. Now is the time to build camaraderie and trust. Let's be brave enough to have conversations with people outside of our inner circle whose minds we don't know as well as we know our own, and share with them our fears and concerns. And let's hear theirs. Let's go to meetings where we don't know anyone and learn about issues and perspectives that challenge us. Let's make sure to allow the pain of other people's experiences to puncture our own hearts. Let's build camaraderie and trust with anyone and everyone we can, in our offices, in our schools, in our faith communities outside of these walls, leaving those conversations having heard and having said, to get to you, they'll have to go through me. From their own mouths, that is what we have that they don't have. It is our greatest weapon. A person should only pray in a building that has windows. Why? Because windows are breakable. They remind us of our vulnerability, which is, ironically, our greatest strength. Our need for camaraderie and trust, and our willingness to take action steps to give it, offer it to others, is what will bring the sun out again and create the world anew. Upon seeing an eclipse, our tradition suggests that we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam osei ma'aseh v'reshit. Thank you, God, for performing before my eyes the work of creation. May we be able to utter this blessing, not only on Monday, behind protective glasses, of course, but also in the months and years to come, when we realize that the greatest light of our human goodness and greatness is still shining and will continue to shine full force once again. Shabbat Shalom.